Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today I read an article that I liked very much, actually. It's 15 compelling reasons for atheists to consider the Bible. And it says, I'm trying to look for a name on this article, and I did not. Susan Como. So that's Susankomo. And this was in a bunch of different places. It looks like she has over 3,000 followers. And I could not agree more with Susan. So let's see what her 15 compelling reasons are. You've probably heard me say in the past the best reference books that are out there. And the Bible's always on my list, on my top 5 list. And I may do another top 5 for the year of 2024 as well. I did one for 2023 and the video did okay. So maybe you're not Southern if you don't drink coffee out of a mason jar. So the Bible is a fantastic historical document. So whether you believe in what it says or not, it still is a proper text for study. And that's what this suggests. This is the Bible might seem just like a religious text, but there's so much more to it than meets the eye. Whether you are curious, skeptical, or just love exploring new ideas, the Bible offers a rich source of history, philosophy, and human experience. You don't need to believe in God to appreciate the wisdom and stories within its pages. If you've never given it a chance, here's some more compelling reasons it might be worth looking at. So I like where this is headed. A tool for personal reflection. Absolutely. And so here's the thing. Even fables and tall tales, they always lend you with a reason that is ethically appropriate, right? The Bible and the stories, especially the stories that Jesus told to teach people, are excellent stories that give you moral contemplation. It makes you think about who you are and what your morals are about. It says several accounts in the Bible make readers reflect on life, morality, and purpose. Even without faith, you may reflect on your values and choices as you read through the stories and the lessons. It's not just about faith, but a journey about the human condition. And ultimately, pursuing a relationship with God comes from the details of your human condition. I think that's an excellent suggestion. But you've heard me say in the past, even if someone is not a Christian, most religions, the 3 major religions, Judaism is Old Testament, right? And then Christianity is Old and New Testament. And then Islam, they have a Quran, which a lot of that ethically is the same as what the Bible says. Some of the same morals, some of the same kindnesses. I did a video one time on lessons from the Quran that you can, I'm a Christian, but I find wisdom in everything. If you were to walk around my house, you see the books behind me. You see this is my Bible shelf specifically to the left, and I have another shelf of Bibles there because I have many, many Bibles because I like to study how they came from different languages, contextually, the translations and everything else. Even though people on the internet want to argue about everything you say, I've got a pretty good fix on all of that because of that book you see right there, which is the Strong's Concordance. So if you have that book even and you don't have a Bible, that has most of the Bible in it, or all of the Bible in it, split up to different subjects and text. So that's a good way to do the same if you want to study that. But understanding religious motivations is an important piece of growth that can come from the Bible as well. The Bible has influenced billions of people worldwide, shaping cultures, policies, and personal decisions. Whether or not you believe in a given theology, understanding it allows you to understand why others do, and it might even pave the way for some pretty interesting discussions with others. The other point, too, is if you want to be a dynamic human being, Christianity is the largest faith on the planet of the earth. The Bible is the most studied and the number 1 seller forever. So if that's the case, then you as an individual not reading the book that is the most popular book on the planet for the longest period on the planet, that would have you kind of exiled out of what the conversation could be for the norm. Right now, today, people read less books and watch more TV, but so maybe it's less of a natural selection type thing today than it would be, but something to think about. It's more than just rules and restrictions. Many people see the Bible as a rule book, but it's much more than that. I always say it's an operations manual or owner's manual. While it does contain guidelines for living, Core is filled with stories of love, loss, hope, and redemption. It addresses some of humanity's deepest questions and invites us to reflect more deeply on life's meaning, going beyond mere do's and don'ts. I agree with that completely. The next one is Philosophy and Wisdom Beyond Religion. Sections like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes are full of practical advice, coupled with serious philosophical considerations on life, suffering, and the nature of man. You really don't have to be religious to appreciate those insights. They offer wisdom that may apply to any person's life, regardless of their beliefs or where they're from. That's a fact, and I say that all the time. The Bible is 2,000 years, has been studied for 2,000 to 3,000 years, depending on which Old Testament or New Testament, etc. It's a historical window because of that. It came from Greek and Aramaic languages. It came from languages that no longer exist, so it's a historical window into ancient cultures. The Bible is like a time capsule that gives insights into the lives, beliefs, and customs of ancient people. If you like history, it's quite interesting reading how these ancient societies function and how their stories have shaped today's world. And the more you study the Bible, and that there's tons of other stuff about life in biblical times and the Bible through the ages. Life in Biblical Times is a really cool book that's nice to study. It's by J.A. Thompson. And in this book, you go through it, and it shows you what people actually looked like, what they dressed, what they drank their mead out of, and their wine, and how they milled their food into processed food, and the area of the world that the stories happened in. And I mean, there's tons of other things. If you start studying the Bible, there's tons of other things to study. The art is incredible. The functionality and the tools and how people evolved from those times to now. There's sections in this book about warfare and the weapons used and how different militaries use those weapons. There's stuff in here about the Ark of the Covenant and history, the idea of Israel at worship and what they did, and some of the laws and functionality. It shows in this page here, this is the holy temple, the first temple that was raised. There that is right there. So books like this, you get a lot of history and you get a lot of additional detail from the people that lived in those times. So even if you're not biblically driven, it acts as a historical window that may create some interest in that other subject matter for you. So that's something to think about if you haven't thought about it from that. It's been around for a long time. Key understanding to world religions. Even if you don't follow religion, understanding the Bible will broaden your worldview concerning the world's major faiths. I agree with that completely. It's foundational to Christianity and Judaism and contributes to the context in which Islam emerged. In this way, you will get a wide understanding of belief systems and how they shape the cultures across the globe. Now, you've heard me talk already about Judaism and Islam from this. The people in the Bible are also spoken about in the Quran, and Judaism is the Old Testament of the Bible, where Christianity is the entire Bible. So when you think about that, the majority of the people on this planet worship in a way that is impacted by the Bible. The majority of people on this planet. Now, granted, there's bunches of other religions, countless. I think it's around 5,000 and some, 5,600 and some. And some of those will shock you. Some of them it's people worshiping farm animals. But at the end of the day, it's the basis core of ethics and belief to all, or at least the majority, of human beings on the planet. So when you think about it like that, it's timeless lessons on human nature. The Bible is not just solely about God, but it's about people, greed, compassion, fear, love, and jealousy. These are stories that transcend time. They remind us that really human nature hasn't changed all that much, and that lots of the struggles that people face today have been around for several thousand years. I love that when I tell you, when I read Meditations the first time, which is by Marcus Aurelius, I felt like I was talking to a guy about what happened yesterday. I mean, literally the same stuff I was dealing with as a leader, and this was over a decade ago, he dealt with over a millennia ago, or right at a millennia ago, right? So it's increasingly supportive and stress reducing if you put yourself in context with these people that came before you. So that's why the Bible is a great idea to read, even if you're an atheist or a non-Christian believer, because of perspectives on suffering and hope. Everyone faces tough times and suffering at some point in their lives. The Bible has a lot to say about dealing with the pain and finding hope. Even if you're not religious, the message is there about enduring difficult times and holding on to hope can be very meaningful. The wisdom in ancient text can offer comfort and perspective when going through rough patches, even for non-believers. And I've told you in the past that the people that I found most resilient in this life have been Christian believers. You'd be amazed at what a Christian can go through because of hope, because of faith. And there was a scientific experiment. I'm sorry to even mention this and put it in your brain, but it's in mine. So here you go. There was a mouse that this scientist put in a cup, and I think it's just awful, but he put this mouse in this cup, and it was swimming to try to save its own life. And one he took out, and then he put it back in, but the other one he didn't take out. And so that mouse drowned in about an hour or two when it got fatigued. The mouse that he took out swam another 22 hours because he had now been removed from it once and he had hope. And so he was hoping to come back out again. Now, it's an awful story, but it was a true scientific experiment. But that's the strength in hope. People can do far more when they have hope and they have faith than they can without it. And that was just a scientific experiment, which is awful, but it proved the point exactly in all creatures. If there is hope, you will do more, you can hang on longer, you have more power. It makes you stronger in the event that you're going through some type of difficulty. The book that invites debate. The Bible is often interpreted in countless ways, making it a source of lively discussion and debate. Regardless of your stance on this message, its readings frequently spark conversations about ethics, purpose, and the nature of existence. Whether you agree with its teachings or not, the Bible's impact on these subjects is profound, and it leads to meaningful and thought-provoking debates. If you have a circle of peers that are intelligent enough to debate with, that is exactly correct. Most people this day can't even get past arguing about politicians, which should be very simple. They all belong at the bottom of the sea. But the Bible itself invites debate, and often people that aren't Christian have read it enough to have some points that they want to debate about. So if you have biblical knowledge and can show them support for what you're saying, that's increasingly strong too, where you can then have them believe that maybe it's more than what I thought, right? And they have their whole lifetime to choose Jesus. They have their whole lifetime to become a Christian. They have their whole lifetime. The problem is we don't know when our last day is. I mean, I can walk outside today, I can get hit by a satellite from space, can fall through my roof and kill me right here, right now. The point is we're not promised another moment. So that's the thing about postponing those conversations, or that resolution of faith and creating a proper relationship with God. But people ultimately have to do that for themselves. So the Bible is great for people to read and engage with because it creates thoughts around this. It engages narratives that challenge thinking. The Bible stories are far from simple. Many of its narratives challenge you to think deeper about life and its complexities. From epic battles to quiet moments of personal revelation, these stories aren't just entertaining, they make you think about the world in new ways. And the thing about reading in general, if you're not much of a reader, when you're reading, you can't interrupt the person that's teaching you, that's telling you these stories, right? So you have to shut up and listen. When you do that, your understanding is increased dramatically because you're not getting in the way with your viewpoint of the world, right? You have this box viewpoint of the world, and when you're reading, you can't spew that on the person that's giving you this information because it's silent, it's in writing, it's there to be read. The Bible doesn't shy away from human flaws either. Its stories are filled with imperfect people facing real struggles, making mistakes, and learning hard lessons. The complexity offers a more realistic portrayal of life, one that even atheists can appreciate for its honesty because it's a true picture of how complex humanity is. It's also a universal in moral themes. I've mentioned that earlier. Even without religious belief, many of the Bible's teachings about love, justice, and forgiveness are universal and universally relatable. These moral themes transcend religion and resonate with the values we hold in everyday life, making it easy to connect with even from a secular perspective. And like we said, it was the cultivation point for most religions on the world. But beyond that, our law documents, especially in Western civilization, come from Exodus and the Ten Commandments. They come from guidance from the Bible and Deuteronomy specifically about appropriate law. So even the law, if you're not a Christian, even the laws that your country holds you to when it comes to having a moral compass or a morality thought process or aspect, it's coming from biblical perspectives. And it's a literary masterpiece. I agree with that completely. I haven't read a book that's more perfect than the Bible, meaning I haven't read a book that has so much in it about so much than the Bible. The Bible, like it mentioned Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, you read those two books, you can learn how to live right there, even if you don't have a parent. Those two books will teach you how to get through life, navigate it, being a good person with good intent and doing things in a proper way. Even if you're not a Christian, even if you don't believe in God, if you read those two books, it can teach you how to be a proper man or woman, which that's part of what makes it a literary masterpiece. The Song of Solomon, or Psalms, one's worshiping, one's about love between a man and a woman. They read like poetry. You know, some of them are difficult to understand and some of them are misrepresented. And we've done several videos on those to kind of straighten out what it actually is talking about. There was a verse in Psalms that talked about eating the children. It doesn't mean they're actually going to eat these people's children. It means that they will cut the future off for this country and there will be no future for this country. There will be no more children that grow up in that nation. So you're eating the future of the country by cutting it off, by making it where it's not a country anymore. There will be no more children raised under that flag is what it meant. But people misconstrue and misunderstand. And if you want to read the Bible and you're not a Christian, you want to understand it better and get the meaning of where the author was going at the time, then get you a Strong's Concordance. Here's my newest one, which is great. Here I have one from the 60s and the 70s, and I have one over here that just talks about the Greek, Aramaic, and Chaldee languages that were transcribed into the Bible. But it's a literary masterpiece. To this day, the Bible remains one of the greatest works ever written. Its poetry, prose, and narrative structure have influenced thousands of authors and thinkers across the centuries. Whether one appreciates literature more because of the beauty it expresses or because of the intellect it evokes, the literary merit of the Bible can stand for itself. That is an absolute fact. It's the #1 best-selling book of all time. And then when you think about the drama around getting the Bible into English specifically, tens of thousands of people were slaughtered by the Catholic Church because they didn't want the common man to be able to read the Bible. So it shows the good and bad, that the church was actually bad, that the Bible is between people and God, and the church tried to keep that away from people, which they weren't supposed to do. It was in direct denial of what Jesus said, direct denial of what God thought the world should be like, and they did it specifically and purposely. And just a few months later, after they killed Tyndale, we talked about that some, then they were okay with it being transferred into English because a king wanted to get a divorce and the Bible would let it happen even though the Catholic Church would not. So that goes to show that it's not a human document per se. It comes from something greater. Also, it's a basis for justice movements. Many social justice movements, like the fight for civil rights, have drawn inspiration from the Bible's teachings on equality. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a pastor, and so was his father. He got a lot of his wisdom through the Bible. He got a lot of his long suffering from the Bible. He knew that his idea was to be a peaceful protester and to show that the suffering would come to an end. And that suffering won over a lot of whites. And the whites then supported that movement too. And that's what ultimately just took it over and came to be where things were voted into a more proper situation. And that's the thing about the Constitution. The Constitution was based on the Bible and based on Deuteronomy and those things, but we got some stuff wrong, which we updated and went from there. The Bill of Rights has always been the same, but blacks did not have the right to vote. Women did not have the right to vote. The constitutional amendments added that because of this biblical thought around social justice and those movements. So the Bible's teachings on equality, justice, and compassion, even without faith, you can appreciate how these messages have motivated people to create a positive way to change the world. And I just mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who I think is one of the forefathers of our great country. I think as a leader, he was fantastic. Modern generations have a weak view of him because he was a peaceful protester. A lot of people can more readily align themselves with Malcolm X, who was willing to take violence in hand, but that goes nowhere. Ultimately, you have to win the hearts and minds of the people, which is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did, because he just had that wisdom. He brought that wisdom from the Bible, and then people believed in what he was doing and believed the long suffering, and then it was biblical. So at that point, he got the support, and things changed dramatically for the better. So modern day, you don't think that, but modern day, people are not really working from places of wisdom. They're working from emotion, and the government and online and all these Snapchats and Twitters and all these things just add to that complexity, because now it used to be only smart people spoke, and now everybody's speaking, and people these days don't even care if they're completely wrong. For example, I watched a video the other day, and there was a female doctor who looked like she was Asian descent, but she was in America, went through the Constitution and said there's no for this, no for that, no for this. She was wrong on all of it. 7 out of 7 sentences that this doctor said were absolutely false. But the point was, a doctor's only smart about one area of things. People put them on pedestals. For instance, you got a guy that's going to do a surgery on the spine. That guy's specifically smart about the spine and what it means and those type things, right? But I could probably teach him quite a bit about the mechanics and automation, or how to run a team, or whatever it may be. The point is, people's learning is impacted by the things that influence them. Previously, in the human situation, we didn't have so many influences coming from dumb points of origin. We looked for places of wisdom, and things that lasted longer typically were supported to be greater pools of wisdom, which is very, very not the case, very much not the case today. A study in contradictions, the Bible is full of paradoxes, making it intellectually engaging as a text. It's filled in contrast, mercy versus justice, faith and doubt, love or sacrifice, all blended within one book. Remember, the Bible, even though it's one book, it's not. It's 66 separate books. The Bible, it's the Holy Bible. The Bible means volumes. So it's the holy volumes, right? So even though it is encased in one book, it's not one book, it's 66 books. These contradictions are part of what makes it such an interesting and thought-provoking book. I agree with that completely. Giving the Bible a chance. If you don't believe in God or the Bible, to find value in its pages, you can find value in its pages. Whether you're drawn to it for the history, philosophy, moral teachings, there is something for everyone. Giving it a chance would offer you new insights into life, humanity, even into yourself. After all, exploring different perspectives is how we grow. I think that was a great little article. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed talking to you guys about it, because I often talk about these subjects anyway. I talk about subjects as references across many different books, and I like Robert Frost. I like what he writes. I love the Bible and what's in that. Many different versions of the Bible are very different from one another. Poetry is good. Anything that's American literature or European literature, or even short stories from around the world, all these things can teach you tons of things. So if you're an atheist and you don't have interest in reading the Bible from a God standpoint and a relationship with God standpoint, you're selling yourself short by not reading it at all, because there's tons of things there that add to emotional human growth that can be beneficial to you and your future. So hopefully this was useful to you. Hopefully videos like these are something you're interested in. If you are, please please subscribe to the channel, and please share this video to those that like it. I am Ben. Be good.